Love shouldn't hurt. Celeste had a dream, and in it she saw a magnificent phoenix whose name was Amor. Celeste spoke directly to the magical dream being, and he showed her a vision with her mind's inner seeing. Celeste followed the guidance that she'd seen in the dream, and she found herself following a path down a stream. And soon Celeste was wandering far from home, and she beheld a beauty that she had never before known. This pristine rose grew from the ground, with thick spiky bushes all around. The rose shone with a supernatural power, the deep pink petals open in flower. Fully blooming radiance mesmerized Celeste, so that she returned daily, neglecting her rest. She spent timeless hours admiring its form, and tended to the ground from which it was born. She weeded and watered and took good care to nurture the rose that magnetized her stare. It was often painful to prune and trim, as the sharp thorns cut her till droplets would brim, spilling her blood to the ground, which soaked it all up, leaving her hands stinging sorely around red raw cuts. She left each day empty, with her hands still in pain, and her eyes wandered vacant until she was back there again. Celeste withered away, her hands scarred and sore, but she was entranced and she just wanted more. And the beautiful rose would enchant her each time, and so she gave it all her attention, and it was sublime. She cared only for the rose, not herself, Celeste, for the beauty of the rose was by far the best. So she vowed to ensure that the rose would thrive, as long as it was alive and she herself could survive. As long as she felt she was enough of a lover, she didn't mind too much that the loving made her suffer. Celeste felt unlike herself, as though she'd been diminished. But try as she might, she couldn't make herself finish. Celeste was confused and it didn't make sense. It felt like an addiction. The draw was intense. She went back day after day. Nothing could keep her away. Although her hands were a mess and her soul was distressed, she must tend to this rose to make sure that it grows. She lived in fear of the rose's death, so she tended it with bated breath. What to do to heal her hands she didn't yet know. So she prayed to Amor to see what he might show. The questions she held as she called on his spirit are, why is it that I continue to visit? Why am I fascinated to the point of self-destruction? Or why isn't my pain a successful obstruction? Why am I distracted from the rest of my life and drawn back to this flower despite giving me strife? What kind of world do I live in, so empty and grey, that I toil to love it in this destructive way? Why is it that I return each and every day, and although I'm cold and hungry, I'm choosing to stay? That night in her dreams, Amor answered her prayer. But the beautiful phoenix she'd met was no longer there. She saw Amor the phoenix as a brand new baby. He's wrinkled, small and frail, even slightly shaky. No gold and amber feathers proudly emblazon the glorious form of his previous incarnation. Coughing up the ashes of his recent demise, even while sooty and spluttering, still he is wise. He asks her through the ash, "What do you want from me? My wings are featherless still, and I'm just a baby." Celeste could tell. It was plain to see. The answers were left to her to receive. She'd need her own answers to her heart's mystery. So she formed the questions of her mind's inquiry. Why am I fixated on this object of beauty? Something so precious, so vital, so juicy? Why do I compromise myself to protect and preserve and feel compelled to nurture and to selflessly serve, even when it leaves me hurting in pain or worse, almost as if the very beauty is really a curse? Why do I feel my worth is measured by what I give? Like my fate is tied to whether the rose will die or live? And why do I offer myself even when I'm depleted, scarred, ragged, beaten, bruised, and defeated? What is this affliction, and what does it mean? What can it teach me, and what can I glean? With her prayers made and her questions formed, her hands were still hurting, but her heart was warmed. She was hopeful and open, and looked out for the clues and signs from nature to make her confusion diffuse. She continued to tend the rose each and every day, but her heart was searching and open in a new way. Her thoughts would wander back to her questions, and it was like the world conspired to offer suggestions. Celeste mused about what she was feeling inside, and the truth would reveal now. There was nowhere to hide. And she saw that nature caters for itself on its own. The protection is covered by the thorns that it's grown. And the brambles and thickets have its predators murdered, and the abundance of sun and of earth's how it's nurtured. And she noticed that time moves, no more slow, no more fast, no matter how long she might want it to last. And she observed that nature takes back all that it gives, because nothing in nature eternally lives. And she saw her non-interference with the rose that she cherishes won't change the truth that everything perishes. And while she forgot that she too is part of nature, she saw it loves her just as much, not less and not greater. Her perspective evolved. She said, "I feel the need to fuss, to tinker and fiddle and constantly adjust these facets of nature, these natural events, and I'm starting to see that it just makes no sense. I felt the balance purposefully meted by nature can't be trusted, and instead I turn to imperfections and find myself feeling disgusted. I hold myself responsible, like I need to fix it, trying to create perfection only nature can elicit. As if this most beautiful rose that I worshipped at first could exude enough beauty to quench my endless thirst." With this new information independently gleaned, the phoenix returned that night in her dreams. His feathers were back and his glory returning, and Celeste sat beside him as he set some logs burning. Amor sensed that Celeste was sincere in her desire, so he spoke to her softly as they warmed by the fire. You've done well to look honestly for what you were seeking, and to learn to hear nature as she was speaking, to follow your questions so your path could unfold, because some things need to be discovered, not merely told. Now, Celeste, I have some more questions for you, and only you know if your answers are true. Is this really a love song that you have been singing? Or is this attachment as well that explains why you're clinging? Are you holding on to external beauty in an object to make up for your own qualities that you reject? Are you tending to this plant as a handy distraction instead of tending to your own inner dissatisfaction? Maybe it's martyrdom that means you cannot let go and allow the execution of nature's ceaseless flow. She could see that choosing love was only half of the puzzle, and that not choosing pain was her ongoing struggle. Love demands that we care and we cherish, but it doesn't persevere when its time comes to perish. And love doesn't choose one life at the expense of another's. Her life mattered as much as her sisters and brothers. She saw it didn't serve the rose if she was a martyr, and that the answer was not to try harder and harder. She vowed to let go, to let the rose's life flow in the way nature intended, even though she couldn't know. She shared. All love ends in loss, that's certainly true. But it's not the love that's hurting, it's how we get through. If I block out the grief and the pain of the loss, the price is my pain and it's a terrible cost. But if I keep my heart open and I feel it all fully, the love still remains and it stays more securely. And whatever I find that I'm seeking outside will only satiate me for short bursts of time, because no one else's love and beauty can ever substitute mine. My own inner connection cannot be forsaken. It's the only connection that can never be taken. And I'll be by my own side every time that I cry. And I'll be with myself until the day that I die. I will no longer neglect my own precious self, no matter how well I look after everyone else. And the Moor smiled in reply, and he seemed to be proud. And he nodded with respect, and then he avowed. That is the nature of things. Nothing's a dead cert. But one thing I know is that love shouldn't hurt. And as these two had been speaking, night had turned into day, and the dream landscape quivered and it started to sway, and it was as if time sped up and she saw this same place moving through everlasting time and infinite space, and a rose grew before them, and time moved so fast that she saw the rose's future at the same time as its past, and she watched as it wilted and then drooped and then died. But the dead matter was composted so that it could provide the fertile soil and nourishment for new life to arise. And she saw this whole process repeating cyclical life. And she knew that if the rose was dying, then it was its time to die. She saw that it was born to die and that it dies again to rise. And as this truth resounded through the night sky, a Moor burst into flames to begin a new life. Celeste awoke to see beauty as she rose. And her first thought was her hands, and her second, the rose. She rubbed balm on her cuts, and then she knitted some gloves to protect her delicate fingers and these hands that she loves. And these gloves were good boundaries, protecting her hands as she tended with ease and she followed through with her plans. She would no longer play God with nature's God-given rhythms, but be grateful for everything nature has given. And she tended to the rose until its dying day came. But with all that she'd learned, it was no longer the same. Celeste gave what she could, and then she spent time on her own and tending to her own life, appreciating how she'd grown. And she was grateful for the lessons that the phoenix had shown, and she was dedicated to tending her own inner home. She noticed that she no longer felt such a thirst, and she smiled inside, now that love no longer hurt. Blessed be. I'm Titi Masema. This story was Love Shouldn't Hurt.
Showing you the way inside your heart. Everything you feel is sacred, showing you the way inside your soul. 'Cause everything you feel is sacred, showing you the way inside your heart. Everything you feel is sacred, showing you the way inside your soul. Everything she did to hurt you, everything she felt that made you wrong, just becomes a gift to serve you, another soul lesson to make you strong. Everything he did to hurt you, everything he felt that made you wrong, just becomes a gift to serve you, just another verse in the sacred song. inside your heart. Everything you feel is sacred, showing you the way inside your soul. And everything you feel is sacred, showing you the way inside your. And everything you feel is sacred,